This video looks at disciplinary epistemologies. The idea of a disciplinary epistemology is the discipline-specific and sometimes culturally specific perceptions of knowledge within that particular discipline. What it is to think or act or be in that specific discipline or profession. So a key thing to think about when you're designing assessments and designing learning activities is how are you ensuring a shared understanding of these discipline-specific and culturally specific perceptions of knowledge with the learners themselves. As educational teams, and especially assessment teams, we need to agree with each other and clarify to the learners and the students what core concepts and threshold concepts are important within that discipline. So the core concept is the fundamental concepts, the fundamental ideas and rationalizations underpinning that discipline, which might be in common with other disciplines or might be unique to that particular discipline. Threshold concepts are concepts which enable the learner to change the way that they think about the world and change the way that they engage with the concepts of the discipline so that they will eventually fully align with the conventions of that discipline, the ways of being, the ways of thinking within that discipline. So a core concept are the core principles underpinning the discipline, and the threshold concepts are the things that they need to achieve in order to think and be like someone within that discipline. So a key thing to think about are what are the most appropriate strategies to support understanding of those concepts, and how do we measure mastery of them with the students. And in particular, how do we define the rules of the game for those students? How do we define what it is that they need to know and understand in order to be considered members of that particular discipline? Various different ways in which that information can come across. So there's formal learning, so learning activities that are structured or set by a teacher or within a teaching activity such as a class. There can be non-formal activities, which is things like coursework or homework or activities that they do that are structured outside of that learning environment. But for disciplinary epistemologies, informal learning is very, very important. So that's learning that happens as a result of being in an environment, being around people within that discipline, watching how they talk, watching how they act, watching how they interact with each other. And you get an idea of how to do that discipline by observing and being part of that culture. It's not a formal learning activity, it's not structured, but it's just you absorbing that culture within that environment. That links very strongly to ideas around the hidden curriculum. That is, the idea of that is what we say, what we do, how we act around learners can impress upon them ways of being and ways of understanding and ways of thinking within a particular discipline. And that's often something that's quite a subliminal message that we might send to our learners and to those people who are trying to become part of the discipline that we already inhabit. So the key thing to think about is how do we encourage students to be part of a discipline through our teaching and assessment practices? How do we use teaching activities and how do we shape assessment activities to ensure that it gives them that understanding of the disciplinary epistemology that they need in order to be part of that discipline?